The moment Derek Matthews ripped Harper Sullivan's dress in front of 500 students, he didn't just tear fabric. He tore open 17 years of carefully buried rage, and what came out would destroy everything he'd built. It started 3 months earlier, on a rainy Tuesday morning at Riverside Academy in Portland. Harper Sullivan sat alone in the cafeteria, noise-canceling headphones on, sketchbook open. She'd been doing this same routine for 6 weeks since transferring here. Same corner table, same untouched lunch tray, same invisible force field that kept everyone at arm's length. But that morning was different. That morning, Derek Matthews noticed her. You have to understand something about Derek Matthews. At 18, he wasn't just popular, he was royalty. Son of Portland's mayor, captain of the lacrosse team, early admission to Yale already secured, and leader of something called the Court, a group so exclusive. Most students didn't even know it existed. Derek had this way of walking that made the hallways part like the Red Sea. That morning, he walked straight to Harper's table, his usual crew trailing behind: Blake Morrison, his enforcer, Madison Chen, social media queen, 4 others whose names Harper never bothered learning. "You're Harper Sullivan," Derek said. Not a question, a statement. Harper looked up slowly, pulling off one headphone. Her eyes were this unusual gray color, like storm clouds. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just waited. "I'm Derek Matthews," he continued, flashing that $1,000,000 smile that had opened every door in his life. "I think it's time we talked." "About what?" Harper's voice was quiet, controlled. Derek sat down uninvited, his crew forming a semicircle behind him. The entire cafeteria had gone silent, phones already recording. This was an event. Derek Matthews didn't approach new students. New students approached him. "The court has an opening," Derek said, lowering his voice like he was sharing state secrets. "We've been watching you. Straight A's. Keep to yourself. No social media presence. You're interesting." Harper closed her sketchbook slowly. "Not interested." The silence that followed was deafening. Madison actually gasped. Blake's jaw dropped. In the history of Riverside Academy, nobody had ever turned down the court. It wasn't done. It was like refusing oxygen. Derek's smile never wavered, but something shifted in his eyes. "You might want to reconsider. The court isn't just a social group. It's insurance, protection, success. We take care of our own." I said no. 2 words, 2 simple words that would start a war. Derek stood up slowly, straightening his designer blazer. "That's unfortunate, Harper. Really unfortunate. See? At Riverside. You're either with us or—" He trailed off, letting the threat hang in the air like smoke. "Or what?" Harper asked, meeting his gaze steadily. Derek leaned in close enough that only Harper could hear. "Or you find out why nobody says no to me?" He walked away, his crew scrambling to follow. The cafeteria erupted in whispers. Harper put her headphones back on and returned to her sketching, but her hand trembled slightly as she drew. Just slightly. What nobody knew, what nobody could have known, was that Harper Sullivan had said no to much scarier people than Derek Matthews. 3 years ago, she'd been someone else entirely, someone with a different name, fighting in junior MMA circuits across the country. 23 fights, 23 wins. They called her the Silent Storm because she never trash-talked, never celebrated, just fought with the precision of a surgeon and the coldness of winter. Until that night in Detroit. Until Samantha Rodriguez stayed down too long. Until the doctors used words like traumatic brain injury and permanent damage. Until Harper hung up her gloves at 15 and disappeared. Her mother's remarriage to a Portland lawyer had been the perfect excuse for a new start. New city, new name, new life where violence was just something that happened to other people. For 6 weeks, it had worked. But Derek Matthews had just ended that. The cyberbullying started within hours. Harper's face photoshopped onto pornographic images, anonymous Instagram accounts spreading rumors about her sleeping with teachers, her locker vandalized with words that made janitors blanch. Someone even created a website, 20 Reasons Harper Sullivan Should Kill Herself. Harper endured it all with the same blank expression. Count to 10. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Techniques her therapist had taught her. Techniques to keep the storm inside. Her mother noticed the change. "Honey, you're barely eating. Is everything okay at school?" "It's fine, Mom." The lie came easily. Her mother had enough stress with the new marriage, the new job. Harper could handle this. She'd handled worse. But Derek was smart. Scary smart. He knew physical bullying would leave evidence. Get him in trouble. So he orchestrated a psychological warfare campaign that would have impressed military strategists. Every day brought new humiliations, each one carefully designed to leave no fingerprints. Her laptop disappeared from her locker, found later in a dumpster, destroyed. Her car tires slashed. But security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned that day. Dating rumors spread about her and the married calculus teacher, complete with deep-fake photos so realistic that even Harper did a double take. The other students watched it all happen with a mixture of sympathy and relief. Sympathy because Harper seemed nice enough. Relief because, as long as Derek focused on her, they were safe. Jaden Torres was the only one who tried to help. A former member of the court who'd quit after his younger brother overdosed on Adderall that came from Derek's pipeline. He approached Harper one day after school. "You need to be careful," Jaden said, glancing around nervously. "Derek's not just some spoiled rich kid. He's dangerous. Really dangerous." "I can take care of myself," Harper replied. "That's what everyone thinks. Until they can't." Jaden pulled up his sleeve, revealing a scar running from wrist to elbow. "This was my warning for trying to report him. The next one would have been worse." Harper studied the scar, her expression unreadable. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the first person to tell him no and not immediately cave. That makes you either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Harper said. Jaden laughed bitterly. "Yeah, maybe both. Look, spring formal is coming up. That's Derek's big show every year, where he proves his power. Last year, he had Chelsea Martin's acceptance to Brown mysteriously revoked after she tried to report the court. The year before, worse. Just don't go. But Harper had already decided she would go. Not because she wanted to dance or wear a pretty dress or pretend to be a normal teenager. She would go because running away wasn't in her DNA anymore. She'd run from the ring. She'd run from who she used to be. She wouldn't run from a bully in a designer suit. The week before spring formal. The harassment escalated. Harper found a dead rat in her backpack. Her homework assignments mysteriously vanished from teachers' desks. Someone hacked her mother's Facebook and posted racist rants that almost cost her stepfather his job at the law firm. Still, Harper endured. Still, she counted to 10. Coach Patricia Chen watched it all from a distance. She'd recognized Harper the first day. You don't forget a fighter like that. She'd coached Harper in Chicago, watched her destroy opponents twice her size with technical precision that belonged in textbooks. She'd also been there that night in Detroit, held Harper as she sobbed in the hospital waiting room. Patricia had taken a job at Riverside to be closer to her aging parents, never expecting her past to follow her. She wanted to intervene, to help, but Harper had made her promise no one could know. The past had to stay buried. But watching Derek Matthews systematically destroy her former champion, it was killing Patricia. The Thursday before spring formal, Patricia found Harper sitting alone in the gym after hours, hitting a heavy bag with controlled precision, even holding back, even trying to be normal. Harper's form was perfect. "You know he's not going to stop," Patricia said quietly. Harper paused mid-strike. "I know. You could transfer, start over somewhere else." "I'm tired of starting over." Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm tired of running." Patricia sat on a nearby bench. "What happened in Detroit wasn't your fault. Samantha knew the risks. We all did. She was 16 years old. She had a full ride to Michigan State. She wanted to be a doctor." Harper's fist connected with the bag. Harder this time. Now, she can barely remember her own name. And punishing yourself by letting Derek Matthews destroy you brings her back. Harper finally turned to face her former coach. There were tears in those storm-gray eyes, but also something else. Something Patricia recognized from the ring. "I'm not letting him do anything," Harper said. "I'm waiting." "For what?" "For him to cross a line he can't come back from. Because when he does—" Harper didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Patricia felt a chill run down her spine. The silent storm was still in there, waiting. And Derek Matthews, in all his privileged arrogance, had no idea what he was about to unleash. Spring formal arrived on a perfect April evening. Cherry blossoms bloomed across Portland, and Riverside Academy's gymnasium had been transformed into what the planning committee called an enchanted garden. Thousands of fairy lights, silk flowers, and enough tulle to wrap the city. Harper arrived alone, wearing a simple navy dress she'd bought with her own money from her part-time job at a bookstore. Nothing fancy, nothing that screamed, "Look at me," just a girl trying to prove she wouldn't be intimidated. The moment she walked in, conversation stopped. Not because she looked stunning, though she did, in that understated way that makes people look twice. They stopped because everyone knew tonight was the night. Derek's final move. The culmination of 3 months of warfare. Have you ever felt a room full of people holding their breath? That collective tension when everyone knows something terrible is about to happen, but no one wants to miss it. That was Riverside's gymnasium at 8:43 p.m. Derek stood at the center of his court, literally, as they'd commandeered the basketball court's center circle as their domain. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's cars. Madison hung on his arm in a dress that violated at least 3 school dress codes. But who was going to tell the mayor's son's girlfriend to go home and change when Derek saw Harper? His smile was pure predator. He whispered something to Blake, who nodded and melted into the crowd. Then Derek raised his champagne glass. Non-alcoholic. Of course. Wink, wink. And the DJ mysteriously lowered the music. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek's voice carried across the gymnasium, smooth as aged whiskey. "I'd like to propose a toast to new beginnings, to knowing your place, and to understanding that at Riverside Academy. Respect isn't given, it's earned." His eyes found Harper across the room. "Isn't that right?" "Harper?" Every phone in the room was out, recording. This was it. The moment they'd all been waiting for. Harper stood perfectly still, counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. "I asked you a question," Derek said, his voice harder now. "Or did you forget how to speak? Maybe that's why you're always alone. Maybe that's why nobody wants you here. 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi." Derek started walking toward her, his crew flanking him like wolves. The crowd parted, creating a direct path. Harper watched him approach, her hands steady at her sides. "You know what your problem is." Derek was close now, close enough that Harper could smell his cologne, something expensive and suffocating. "You think you're special. You think you're better than us. But you're nothing. You're nobody. And tonight, everyone's going to see it." 6 Mississippi. 7 Mississippi. That's when Blake reappeared, holding something behind his back. Madison had her phone out, already live-streaming to her 10,000 Instagram followers. The caption read, "Loser Initiation Night Watch. What happens to girls who think they're too good for the court? 8 Mississippi. 9 Mississippi." "Hold her," Derek commanded. Before Harper could move, 4 members of the court grabbed her arms. Not violently, they were too smart for that. Just firmly enough to keep her in place. Harper didn't struggle. Not yet. "You know," Derek said, circling her like a shark, "when someone disrespects the court, there have to be consequences. It's nothing personal. Just business. Just the way things work." He nodded to Blake, who stepped forward. In his hands was a pair of fabric scissors, the kind used in home economics class. The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, "He's not really going to—" But he was. 10 Mississippi. "Last chance," Derek whispered, leaning close to Harper's ear. "Apologize. Beg to join the court, or this gets ugly." Harper finally spoke, her voice carrying in the silent gymnasium. "No." Derek's smile widened. "Wrong answer." He took the scissors from Blake. The crowd pressed closer. Phones held high. Madison zoomed in, making sure her followers wouldn't miss a second. Someone in the back was crying. Maybe Chelsea Martin, remembering her own humiliation. "You see?" Derek announced to the room. "Harper here thinks she's untouchable, thinks she can walk into our school, disrespect our traditions, and face no consequences. But everyone faces consequences. Everyone learns their place." He grabbed the hem of Harper's dress. The fabric scissors gleamed under the fairy lights. Harper's breathing remained steady, but something in her eyes had changed. The storm clouds were moving. "Don't." One word. Quiet. But it carried weight. Derek laughed. "Or what? You'll report me to who? My dad, the mayor, the principal who golfs with him every Sunday, the police chief who comes to our house for dinner." He leaned in closer. "You're alone, Harper. No friends, no power, no options. Just you and the consequences of saying no to me." The scissors began to cut. The sound of fabric tearing seemed impossibly loud in the silence. 1 inch. 2 inches. The crowd held its breath. That's when Harper spoke again, still in that eerily calm voice. "My name isn't Harper Sullivan." Derek paused, confused. "What?" "My name," she repeated, louder now so everyone could hear. "Isn't Harper Sullivan. It's Sarah Chen. And 3 years ago, I was the youngest MMA champion in the country." The scissors stopped moving. Madison's hand holding the phone began to shake. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Holy shit, I remember her. The Silent Storm. She retired after I put a girl in the hospital." Harper, Sarah, finished. "After I hit her so hard, she forgot her own mother's name. I promised myself I'd never fight again, never lose control again. I moved here, changed my name, tried to be normal, tried to be nobody." She looked directly at Derek, and for the first time in 3 months, she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "But you just made me break that promise." What happened next would be viewed over 2 million times in the first 6 hours. Madison's live stream captured every second. Though she'd later claim her hand was shaking too much to hold the phone steady, security footage would fill in the gaps, creating a complete picture that would be analyzed by everyone from ESPN to the FBI. But in that moment, in that gymnasium, decorated like a fairy tale, all anyone saw was the storm finally breaking free. Derek still held the scissors, still had that arrogant smile, still believed he was untouchable. He had no idea he was already falling. The first thing you need to understand about trained fighters is that they don't move like people in movies. There's no dramatic wind-up, no screaming, no wasted motion. When Harper Sullivan, or Sarah Chen, as we now knew her, moved, it was like watching water flow downhill, natural, inevitable, terrifying. Derek was still processing her words when Harper twisted. Not violently, just a subtle rotation of her shoulders that broke the grip of the 2 court members holding her left arm. Her right elbow came up in the same motion, catching the boy behind her in the solar plexus. He dropped, gasping. The scissors fell from Derek's hand, clattering on the gym floor. "Wait," Derek started to say, but Harper was already moving. She stepped inside his reach, her hand finding his wrist. A gentle redirect, that's all it looked like. But suddenly Derek was airborne, his expensive tuxedo flashing under the fairy lights before he hit the ground hard enough to knock the wind out of him. The crowd exploded. Screams, cheers, gasps, 3 months of tension released in an instant. Madison's live stream shook wildly as she backed away, but she kept filming. This was bigger than the court now. This was history. Blake Morrison, ever the loyal soldier, charged at Harper with a roar. 6'3", 220 pounds of varsity lacrosse player against a 5'6" girl in a torn dress. The smart money would have been on Blake. The smart money would have been wrong. Harper didn't meet his charge. She pivoted, using his momentum against him. Her foot swept his ankle as her hand guided his shoulder. Blake's own force sent him crashing into the refreshment table. Punch bowls shattered. Cookies scattered like confetti. Blake didn't get back up. "Stop!" someone screamed. "Someone call security!" But security was already there, frozen at the edge of the crowd. They'd been told explicitly by Principal Morrison, Blake's uncle, not to interfere with the court's traditions. Now, they didn't know what to do. 2 more court members rushed Harper simultaneously. She dropped low, avoiding their grasping hands, and came up between them. Her palms struck their sternums, not hard enough to cause damage, just enough to create space. They stumbled backward, tripping over their own feet. The whole sequence had taken maybe 20 seconds. 5 members of the court down. Harper's breathing hadn't even changed. Derek struggled to his feet, his perfect hair now wild, his tuxedo jacket torn at the shoulder. For the first time in his 18 years of life, he looked afraid. "You're insane," he gasped. "You're going to jail for this. My father will—" Your father will what? Harper interrupted, her voice still eerily calm. Have me arrested for self-defense. 5 people grabbed me. You assaulted me with scissors. Madison filmed everything. She glanced at the crowd of phones. Everyone filmed everything. Derek's face went from red to white. He looked around desperately for support. But the court members who were still standing had backed away. In the hierarchy of high school, power was everything. And in 20 seconds, Harper had revealed that Derek's power was an illusion. This isn't over, Derek snarled, trying to salvage some dignity. You think you've won. I own this school. I own this city. I'll destroy you. I'll destroy your family. I'll... Locker 1247. Derek stopped mid-threat. The color drained from his face completely. Harper continued, her voice carrying across the silent gymnasium. Combination 24, 11, 35. The date your mother died. That's where you keep your stash. Isn't it $200,000 worth of Adderall and cocaine that you distribute through the court? The silence was deafening. Madison's hand shook so badly she nearly dropped her phone. You're lying, Derek whispered, but his voice cracked. Am I? Harper reached into the small purse she'd brought, pulling out a phone, not hers, an older model. Screen cracked. This belonged to Marcus Torres, Jaden's little brother, the kid who overdosed on your pills last year. Jaden thought it was destroyed, but Marcus hid it. Want to know what's on it? She tapped the screen. Derek's voice filled the gymnasium, tinny but unmistakable through the phone's speaker. Look, kid, first taste is free, but quality costs. You understand? This isn't street garbage. This is pharmaceutical grade, straight from my connection at the hospital. You want to ace your SATs. This is how everyone does it. Your brother Jaden used to be my best customer before he went soft. Harper stopped the recording. There's 3 hours more, names, dates, prices, everything. Derek lunged at her. Desperate now, Harper sidestepped easily. And Derek crashed into Principal Morrison, who'd finally pushed through the crowd. What is going on here? Morrison demanded, helping Derek to his feet. His eyes found Harper, narrowing. Young lady, you're in serious... Principal Morrison, Harper interrupted. Did you know your nephew Blake has been selling drugs to sophomores, or that your star student Derek Matthews has been running a narcotics ring out of your school? Morrison's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's a serious accusation. You can't just... I have proof. Harper held up the phone. I also have 12 students ready to testify, including Chelsea Martin, whose Brown acceptance was mysteriously revoked after she tried to report the court to you. Last year. Remember that meeting, the one where you told her she was mistaken about what she saw? Morrison went pale. Someone in the crowd whistled low. You planned this, Derek said, staring at Harper with something like awe mixed with his fear. The whole thing, letting me bully you for months, coming to the formal. You planned all of it. Harper shrugged. I gave you 3 months to leave me alone, to be a decent human being. You chose this. But why? Madison finally spoke, her voice small. Why go through all that harassment? Why not just report it from the beginning? Harper looked at her with those storm-gray eyes. Because reporting doesn't work when the system is corrupt. When the principal protects the bullies. When the mayor's son is untouchable. When money and power mean more than justice. She gestured to the crowd. But 2 million witnesses on Instagram, that's harder to ignore. The number hit everyone at once. Madison looked at her phone, gasping. The live stream had indeed gone viral. Comments were pouring in from around the world. The video was being shared thousands of times per minute. The FBI has been investigating pharmaceutical theft from Portland General Hospital, Harper continued, her voice carrying clearly. They just needed a connection to the street level. Congratulations, Derek, you're about to be famous. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Derek's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the gym floor, his perfect world crumbling around him. My father, Yale, your father is about to have bigger problems than your college acceptance, Harper said. Turns out he's been taking bribes from your pharmaceutical connection, $40,000 deposited into an offshore account every month. Did you really think you were that good at covering your tracks? Or did Daddy's money make you feel invincible? The sirens were right outside now. Blue and red lights flashed through the gymnasium windows, turning the fairy lights into a disco nightmare. Principal Morrison tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Officer Patricia Chen, yes, Coach Chen had another job, stepped out of the crowd with her badge displayed. Going somewhere? Morrison, Patricia asked. We have some questions about your involvement in suppressing reports of drug distribution in your school. Harper turned to Patricia, and for the first time all night, her composure cracked. Coach, I know you asked me not to interfere, Patricia said softly, but I've been working undercover for 2 years, building this case. When you showed me that phone last week, she smiled, you gave us the final piece we needed. The gymnasium doors burst open. FBI agents in tactical gear swept in, followed by Portland police. The lead agent surveyed the scene, Derek on the floor. The court members scattered and scared, hundreds of students filming everything. Derek Matthews, the agent announced, you're under arrest for distribution of controlled substances, conspiracy, and racketeering. You have the right to remain silent. As they cuffed Derek, he looked at Harper one last time. This isn't over, he said. But the words were empty now, hollow. Harper finally smiled. A real smile. Not the cold thing from before. Yes, it is. The next hour was chaos. Parents arrived in waves. Expensive cars clogging the parking lot. Lawyers were called. The school board held an emergency meeting. The mayor himself showed up, but was turned away by federal agents who informed him he was also under investigation. Through it all, Harper sat on the bleachers, still in her torn dress, watching it unfold. Students approached her one by one. Some apologized for not helping. Others thanked her for standing up. Chelsea Martin hugged her and cried. Jaden Torres was one of the last to approach. His eyes were red, but he was smiling. Marcus is going to get justice, he said simply. Thank you. I'm sorry it took so long, Harper replied. You were waiting for the right moment. I get it now. He sat beside her. So, Sarah Chen, the Silent Storm. That's really you. Harper nodded. Was me. I retired for a reason. The girl in Detroit. I looked it up after you told Derek she's recovering. You know, posted a video last month. She's walking again, talking. She doesn't blame you. Harper's eyes filled with tears, the first real emotion she'd shown in months. Really? Really? She said fighting was her choice. What happened was an accident. She said, Jaden paused, pulling out his phone. Here, she said she hopes you haven't given up on your dreams because of her. Harper read the message, tears flowing freely now. 3 years of guilt, 3 years of self-punishment, beginning to crack. If this story reminds you of someone who needs to hear that standing up is possible, that bullies can be stopped, Maybe share it with them. Sometimes we all need reminders that silence in the face of injustice isn't strength. It's just silence. Madison Chen approached nervously, still clutching her phone. I'm sorry. For everything. I knew it was wrong, but I was scared. If I didn't go along with Derek, you'd become a target, Harper finished. I know. The live stream has 5 million views now, Madison said quietly. People are calling you a hero. The hashtag Silent Storm Returns is trending worldwide. Harper shook her head. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got tired of running. As the night wound down and the gymnasium emptied, Coach Patricia Chen found Harper still sitting on the bleachers. She sat down beside her former student, not saying anything for a long moment. So, Patricia finally said, "What now?" Harper considered the question. For 3 years. She'd been running from who she was, hiding from her strength, afraid of what she might do with it. But tonight had shown her something important. Jaden's organizing a support group, Harper said slowly, for kids who've been bullied, who feel powerless. He asked if I'd help train them, not to fight, just to feel strong, to know they can defend themselves if they need to. Patricia smiled. Sounds like a good use of your talents. And maybe, Harper hesitated, maybe I could start competing again. Not MMA, something softer. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe. Something where control matters more than power. The storm doesn't always have to be destructive. Patricia agreed. Sometimes, it just needs to clear the air. They sat in comfortable silence, watching janitors begin the long process of cleaning up the destroyed refreshment table. Tomorrow, Riverside Academy would be different. The power structure that had protected bullies and punished victims was gone. It wouldn't be perfect. Nowhere ever was. But it would be better. You know what the funny thing is? Harper said eventually. I actually bought a nice dress for tonight. Spent 2 weeks of bookstore wages on it. And he ruined it in 5 seconds. Patricia laughed. Send him the cleaning bill. I hear he's going to have lots of time to work off his debts in federal prison. 3 months later. The community center smelled like sweat and determination. 23 teenagers in various stages of athletic wear stood in a circle, watching Harper demonstrate a basic defensive stance. Remember, she said, adjusting a young girl's footing, this isn't about becoming fighters. It's about becoming confident. It's about knowing you have options, that you're not helpless. Jaden assisted, moving through the group, offering encouragement. His brother Marcus was there too, 6 months clean and determined to stay that way. In the corner. Chelsea Martin practiced the moves with fierce concentration. Her acceptance to Brown had been reinstated after the truth came out. Miss Chen, a small voice piped up. It was Aisha, a freshman who'd joined after enduring months of racist harassment. What if we're not strong enough? What if they're bigger? Harper smiled, remembering her own journey. Strength isn't about size, it's about technique. It's about staying calm. And most importantly, it's about knowing when to fight and when to find another way. Real strength is having power and choosing when to use it. Through the window, she could see Patricia Chen talking to parents, explaining the program. Self-defense training, counseling resources, peer support, a comprehensive approach to combating bullying that addressed both the physical and emotional aspects. The door opened, and a familiar face peered in. Madison Chen, no relation to Patricia. Despite the shared name, stood uncertainly at the threshold. She'd spent the summer doing community service. Court-ordered restitution for her part in the court's harassment campaigns. Can I? Madison started. then stopped. "Is it okay if I join? I know I don't deserve it." But the room went quiet. Everyone looked to Harper. "Everyone deserves a second chance," Harper said simply. "Get changed. We're working on escape techniques today." Madison's relief was palpable as she hurried to the changing room. Harper caught Jaden's eye. He nodded approvingly. Healing happened in many ways, and sometimes it meant letting former enemies become allies. "All right, everyone, partner up," Harper called out. "Remember, the goal isn't to hurt anyone. It's to get away safely, to go home to your families, to live your lives without fear." As the students paired off, Harper thought about fear, how it had controlled her for 3 years, how it had made her small, made her hide. Derek Matthews had done her a favor, in a twisted way. He'd forced her to face her fears, to reclaim her strength. The news had been extensive. Mayor Matthews resigned in disgrace. Principal Morrison was sentenced to 5 years for corruption and endangering minors. The court's drug ring had led to 12 arrests and a complete overhaul of Riverside Academy's administration. But the real victory wasn't in the headlines. It was in this room, where scared kids were learning they didn't have to stay scared, where victims were becoming survivors, where silence was breaking. "Miss Chen?" Another student, Brian, raised his hand. "My mom wants to know if you'll run an adult class, too. She says after seeing what you did, she wishes she'd stood up to her boss years ago." Harper considered it. The ripple effect of that night at Spring Formal continued to spread. Parents wanting to feel empowered, teachers asking for training, a whole community waking up to the fact that bullies only had the power they were given. "Tell her we start next month," Harper decided. Wednesday nights. As the class continued, Harper moved through the students, adjusting stances, offering encouragement. Each one had a story. Each one had been where she'd been, afraid, alone, believing they had no options. But they did have options. They always had. They just needed someone to show them. The silent storm had returned, but not as a destroyer, as a teacher, as a protector, as proof that sometimes the greatest strength was in lifting others up. Outside, Portland's cherry blossoms were blooming again. A full year had passed since that night when Harper Sullivan had walked into a gymnasium in a simple navy dress and walked out as Sarah Chen, symbol of resistance. She still went by Harper. Though some habits were hard to break, and besides, Harper Sullivan had been brave too. She'd endured 3 months of hell to gather evidence, to wait for the perfect moment. Both names, both identities, were part of her now. "Good," she called out, as Brian successfully broke free from a grab. "See, size doesn't matter when you know where the weak points are." Her phone buzzed. A message from Samantha Rodriguez, the girl from Detroit. They'd been corresponding regularly since that night. Samantha was starting college in the fall, planning to study physical therapy. She wanted to help people recover from injuries, she said, turn her experience into something positive. "Watching your video gave me hope." The message read, "Knowing you found a way to use your strength for good after what happened. It helps. Thank you." Harper smiled, typing back quickly before returning to her students. "Thank you for forgiving me, for letting me forgive myself." As the class wound down, Harper gathered everyone for the closing circle. It was a tradition she'd started, a moment of reflection, of community. "What did we learn today?" she asked. "That we're stronger than we think," Aisha said. "That bullies are just scared people trying to make us scared too." Marcus added, "that we don't have to face things alone." Madison said quietly. Harper nodded. "All true, but here's the most important thing. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing to stand up. Even if your knees are shaking, even if you're not sure you'll win. Because standing up for yourself, for others, for what's right, that's what makes us human." The circle broke with applause and chatter. Students collected their things, made plans for next week, headed home to families who were learning to worry a little less. Harper stayed behind to clean up, and Patricia joined her, stacking mats in comfortable silence. "Proud of you, kid," Patricia said eventually. "For which part?" "All of it, but mostly for this." She gestured around the empty room that would fill again tomorrow with new students, new stories, new hopes. "For turning your pain into purpose." Harper considered that. Purpose. For 3 years, she'd had none, just guilt and fear. Now she had 23 reasons to get up every morning, 23 kids who looked to her for strength, not knowing they were giving her strength in return. "You know Derek gets sentenced next week," Patricia mentioned. 15 to 20 years, most likely. His lawyers playing for sympathy, saying you set him up. "I gave him 3 months to make different choices," Harper replied. "He set himself up." They finished cleaning in silence. But it was a good silence, the kind that comes after storms, when the air is clear and everything feels possible. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about prevention. Sometimes it's about teaching the next generation that they don't have to accept abuse. That power isn't the same as authority. That true strength comes from protecting those who can't protect themselves. The silent storm had found her voice, and she would never be silent again.